I've got beer from Montauk. I've got ciabatta rolls from Southampton. And I thought, what goes with both of those? I think I'm gonna make salmon and guacamole sandwiches, and then you can drink the beer with it. So first, I'm gonna make guacamole. I need 2 avocados. They have to be really ripe, and I like Hass avocados, which are these brown ones. Okay, next is lime juice. I've got 1/4 cup of freshly squeezed lime juice. This is what keeps the guacamole from turning brown, so you really want to just toss it together. Next, 4 scallions and 1/4 cup of red onion. They'll have lots of heat. Have a tablespoon of jalapeno pepper. You can make it as hot as you like. 1 teaspoon of garlic. I always put garlic in guacamole. Teaspoon of salt. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. I'm just gonna mash it together with a fork. Okay, and I'm gonna oil the salmon and then salt and pepper it. And what I'll do is I'll just sear it in the pan. It's a dry pan, you just wanna oil the fish so it doesn't stick to the pan. Okay, salt and pepper. Salt. You wanna season it really well. What I'm gonna do is sear it in the pan, and then what I'm gonna do is put it in the oven, and it comes out sort of crisp on the outside and perfectly tender on the inside. Okay, so I'm gonna put the salmon in, skin side up, for 2 minutes. And don't move it at all, so it forms a crust. I'm gonna cook it for 2 minutes on this side, then I'm gonna turn it, cook it 2 minutes on the other side. So it's really important with fish, it is with chicken, with anything, to let it rest. So I'm gonna put it on a plate and just cover it with aluminum foil and let it rest for about 10 or 15 minutes. And all the juices get back into the salmon that way. It's really important to undercook it a little bit because it's going to keep cooking while it sits. And I want really tender, moist salmon. Okay, next I'm going to toast the ciabatta bread. So I'm just going to cut these in half. I just think with bread and a sandwich, it's always nicer to toast it. Just gives it better texture, better flavor. Put them on a sheet pan, 400 degrees for really 5 to 10 minutes, just until they're lightly toasted. Take 1 ciabatta, put guacamole on the bottom, about 2 tablespoons, that should do it. Just spread it out. And then 1 piece of salmon. I'm gonna take the skin off. I'm just gonna cut it in half with my hands. 2 pieces of applewood smoked bacon that I roasted in the oven. Some arugula, give it a little peppery lettuce thing going. A little salt, make sure it's perfectly seasoned. And a little more guacamole on the other piece of bread. Hold it all together. Put it right on top. Does that look good enough to eat? Panko-Crusted Salmon is one of my favorite ways to prepare salmon. It's delicious salmon, and it's got a great crust with lemon zest and mustard. It's fantastic. And the best part of it is I can make it in advance and just throw it in the oven before dinner so I can have fun with my friends. So I've got 4 salmon fillets, and then I'm gonna make a crust with panko. Panko's that great Japanese breadcrumbs, and they're really crusty. You can buy them in a especially food store, grocery store in the Asian section. My seafood shop has it. I need 2/3 cup of panko, 2 tablespoons of parsley, lemon zest, that should be about a teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And I'm just gonna drizzle it with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Just stir it up, and this is gonna go right on top of the salmon. This looks great. You can really smell the lemon zest, and the parsley looks great. Okay, next for the salmon. So I'm gonna sprinkle it with salt and pepper. Make sure it's really well seasoned. Pepper. And next, some mustard. So the salmon and mustard and panko, they're gonna be great together. So I'm just gonna brush the mustard right on the salmon. It gives it lots of flavor, but it also helps the panko adhere. And now the panko. So I'm just gonna spoon it on and just sort of press it down so it adheres to the salmon. This is really one of my favorite ways to prepare salmon. So good. Okay, that's done. So I've got a really hot pan. I put in 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and I'm just gonna cook the salmon, skin side down. How gorgeous does that look? This is a great way to do it because when you sear it, you get the skin really nice and crisp, and then you put it in the oven and roast it, and it makes it moist and delicious. So I'm going to sear it for 3 to 4 minutes in this pan, and then I'm going to take the whole pan, put it in the oven, 425 for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then let it rest. Panko-Crusted Salmon, a delicious recipe that can be made ahead and cooked really fast. Next is Asian grilled salmon. I can't tell you how many times I've made this, and I guarantee you it's really easy. But it's also elegant. So I'm going to start with a nice piece of salmon, this beautiful center cut salmon. The idea of this recipe is I'm going to make a marinade, pour half of it over the salmon, and then after the salmon's grilled, pour the other half over. So it becomes both a marinade and a sauce, and it keeps it really moist and flavorful. So I'm going to cut 5 or 6 slices. Just make sure you get all the way through the skin. I'm going to take these slices and just put them in a dish, and I'm going to marinate them in. This is about 3 pounds of salmon. You want to figure about a half a pound per person. Okay. Now I'm going to make the marinade. So I have a half a teaspoon of fresh chopped garlic in the bowl. Gives it a nice bite. I need 2 tablespoons of good Dijon mustard. That's about 2 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons of good soy sauce. This is the Asian part of the Asian marinated salmon. And 6 tablespoons of good olive oil. I like California olive oil. I think it's got a good flavor, but it's not too strong for the sauce. I'm just going to whisk this together. This sauce is particularly great because the mustard emulsifies it. So we're just going to pour half on, spread it out. Okay. Great. Asian grilled salmon is just done. Perfect. So you can either take the skin off or not, but I think it's just fine with the skin on. Really up to you. Okay. I'm going to turn it over on this plate. Ooh, that looks good. I'm turning it over particularly. Looks nice that way, but I want the sauce to get into the meat of the salmon. This is a hot and messy job. I think 4 pieces will be perfect for 3 of us. Whoa. I'm just going to put the sauce on next. Okay, I'm just going to put the rest of the sauce on. Keeps the fish really moist and flavorful. Don't use the marinade from the raw fish. Crab cakes always have a wonderful mix of vegetables in them, and I like to use red peppers and onions. I'm going to saute them until they're just softened. 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of butter, and I mix the two. Olive oil has a higher burning temperature, butter has more flavor. So I get the best of both qualities by mixing them. So I've already chopped up the vegetables, actually. I have half a cup of red pepper, half a cup of yellow pepper, 3/4 of a cup of red onion, and 1½ cups of chopped celery. They're all small diced. I'm a big believer that you really only need like 10 recipes. And if you can make each one of those recipes 3 different ways, you've got a repertoire of 30 recipes. I mean, how many recipes do you need? And this is one of those recipes. I make crab cakes, I make salmon cakes. If I have leftover lobster, I make lobster cakes. Okay, now for some great seasonings. These have to have a lot of flavor, and they're all things that you can find in your pantry. A little parsley, like 1/4 cup. I actually don't pick the leaves off the parsley. What I do is just run your knife along the stems and just chop them up. And the stems are just fine. If it's something like rosemary, you can't eat the stems, so you want to pick the leaves off. Okay, so about 1/4 cup right in. And now some spices. I like capers in it. It has sort of a vinegary edge. That's nice, a few tablespoons. Worcestershire sauce. A dash of it. It smells great. A hit of Tabasco, give it some heat. As much as you dare. Some Old Bay seasoning, which is classic for crab cakes and salmon cakes, any kind of fish cakes. Lots of salt and pepper to make sure it has great flavor. I'm gonna let this just simmer for about 20 minutes until all the vegetables and the flavors are blended and the vegetables are softened. This smells wonderful. And it looks great. I love the colorful sort of confetti idea of it. Okay, I'm gonna get some salmon to put in. I need roast salmon. I've actually roasted it already and chilled it so it would flake really easily. Let me tell you how I did it. I just bought a ½ pound of salmon fillet on the skin and I put it on a sheet pan. I brushed it with olive oil, sprinkled it with salt and pepper, and roasted it at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes until it was almost done. Then I took it out and wrapped it in foil and allowed it to sit at room temperature for 10 minutes to finish the cooking. I have about a ½ pound of salmon fillet, and it's really important that it's cold, otherwise it's just a mess. I need about 1 cup of breadcrumbs. That should be just about right. And then to bind them together, keep them really moist, I'm gonna do ½ cup of mayonnaise. Two teaspoons of good Dijon mustard. And 2 eggs. I'm just gonna mix all this up. And the vegetables should be cool a little bit. You want the vegetables cool because you don't want the egg to cook when they go in. Otherwise you have scrambled eggs. Just mix this all together. And then I'm gonna make salmon cakes and fry them. A little bit of butter and oil. This is a great mixture. It's got all kinds of vegetables and the capers and salmon. It's gonna be just delicious. So I'm gonna chill it now. When it's chilled, it's easier to make into salmon cakes. It's firmer. Okay, that's the last one. It's 10 salmon cakes. And when my friend Laura Donnelly gets here, we're gonna saute them up. These look good too.
And it's fluffy too.
Just because it's a weeknight dinner doesn't mean it has to be boring. Nobody wants a boring dinner. My roasted salmon tacos are so delicious, and they're fun, and they're really easy to make. And they start with a rub for the salmon. So, first thing I have is about a teaspoon of lime zest. I think lime and salmon go really well together. And the next is 2 teaspoons of chipotle chili powder. And then, of course, we need salt. 1½ teaspoons of salt. I actually love rubs because you know what? You put it right on the fish, goes right in the oven, and has so much flavor. Okay, next thing is the salmon. So I have 1 3/4 pounds of salmon. I actually have it in 1 piece. You can do it in steaks, but I think it stays moister in 1 piece. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna brush it with lime juice. And lime juice is not only gonna flavor it, but it's gonna make the rub stick to it. Just fresh lime juice. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle this right on. I think with a spoon, just like that. Evenly sprinkle it on. Just think how much flavor this is gonna add. Most tacos are made with fried fish, which is not only a mess, but I think this is kind of better for you. And the nice thing about roasting this is all you have to do is throw it in the oven, set a timer, and forget about it. This goes into a 425-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes until it's just barely cooked. And at the same time, I want to heat up the tortillas. I'm going to put them right in the oven with the salmon, same temperature. So the next thing I need for my salmon tacos is mashed avocados. That's 4 avocados. I need some lime juice, about 2 tablespoons, and this gives it flavor, but also keeps them from turning brown. I use sriracha. I like the flavor of it. You can use as much or as little as you like. You want a little heat, but not too much. teaspoon of salt, about a quarter teaspoon of pepper, and I'm just gonna mash it up. It's a little like making guacamole, but it's not guacamole. Actually, don't over mash this. I like to be creamy and chunky both together. Okay, the last part is slaw. This is it, and it couldn't be simpler to make. I put 3/4 of a pound of shredded green cabbage into a bowl with half a seedless cucumber that I sliced thinly on a mandolin. Then poured over 1/4 cup of white wine vinegar, tossed in 3 tablespoons of minced fresh dill, sprinkled over some salt, pepper, and just mixed everything together. I think the salmon's ready. Absolutely perfect. How gorgeous does that look? And the tortillas are ready. Hot, which is exactly what they should be. Okay, I've got all the elements ready. I take a tortilla, nice warm one. Big dollop of mashed avocado on one side. Some flaked salmon, one sort of big piece of flaked salmon. Look how gorgeous that is. Put it right on top. Yum. Some of the slaw on the other side. And then I take a second one and do exactly the same thing. Okay, just a little bit of salt. Well, that's roasted salmon tacos. Not bad for a weeknight dinner.